She was just 12 years old, paralyzed, alone, and forgotten at a crowded airport gate. Thousands walked past her. Not one person stopped, until a janitor with tired eyes and a full heart asked one simple question. "Baby, why is no one helping you?" What happened next would change both of their lives forever and expose what money can never replace. Sophie Mitchell was used to being alone. Not because she wanted to be, but because life had slowly taught her not to expect much from others. Just 12 years old, Sophie had already endured more pain than most adults. After a tragic car accident 2 years earlier, she lost the use of her legs. The doctors called it a miracle that she had survived at all, but the cost of that miracle was everything a child loves: running, climbing, dancing. All gone. Her father, Douglas Mitchell, was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. A tech mogul whose face often appeared on magazine covers and investor conferences. On paper, he had it all: money, influence, even a philanthropic foundation. But the one thing he didn't seem to have: time. His wife, Sophie's mother, had passed away when Sophie was only 5. Cancer took her swiftly and cruelly. Since then, Douglas had buried himself in his work. He believed he was doing the right thing, working hard to provide the best care, the best therapists, the best nannies money could buy. But Sophie didn't want more nurses. She didn't want a private jet or the best wheelchair money could afford. She just wanted him. One summer morning, Sophie sat at an airport gate in a busy terminal, waiting to board a flight to a luxury therapy camp across the country. Her father had planned every detail, except the most important one: human connection. She was supposed to be accompanied by a staff member, but a last-minute cancellation left her alone. Her assistant had texted. Something came up. The gate crew will help you board. Stay put. You'll be fine. But fine is a word adults throw around when they don't want to be bothered. And Sophie? She wasn't fine at all. She sat quietly in her wheelchair, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Around her, travelers bustled, rushing to catch flights, yelling into phones, sipping overpriced coffee. Some glanced her way with vague curiosity. A few seemed confused. But no one stopped. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 40. Sophie's flight began boarding, and N01 came. The gate agent didn't even notice her. Maybe they thought she'd already boarded. Maybe they assumed someone else was helping her. That's how people usually justified doing nothing. Sophie didn't cry. Not because she wasn't scared, but because crying never brought anyone to her side before. And then, someone did stop. Her name was Marla Jackson. She was pushing a mop in a battered yellow janitor cart. Her uniform was 2 sizes too big. Her shoes were worn thin. She had just finished a long night shift cleaning bathrooms and mopping endless floors. Her back ached. Her knees complained with every step. She had every reason to keep walking. But she didn't. She noticed Sophie immediately. Not because she stood out, but because she was invisible to everyone else. Marla paused. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently. "You waiting on somebody?" Sophie looked up, startled. A stranger's voice, kind and warm, cut through the noise like sunlight through fog. My assistant was supposed to come. I think they forgot." Marla crouched slightly, to be eye level with her. "You flying by yourself?" Sophie nodded, then hesitated. "My dad's really busy. He said someone would help me." Marla's face softened. She didn't know who the girl was. She didn't need to. All she saw was a child who had been left behind. Marla straightened up and looked around. Not a single airline worker. No parent. No guardian in sight. "I ain't letting you sit here alone," she said firmly. She walked to the gate agent and explained the situation. The agent barely looked up. "If she needs assistance, someone from her party has to notify us. Otherwise, we assume she's pre-boarded." Marla stared at the woman. "She's 12. In a wheelchair. And y'all just assumed she rolled herself onto the plane?" The agent shrugged. "Not our responsibility." That was it. That sentence echoed in Marla's head. Not our responsibility. She returned to Sophie, who still sat exactly where she'd been. Still invisible. "All right, baby," she said. "What's your name?" "Sophie." "Well, Miss Sophie," Marla smiled. "How about we get some answers?" Marla called the number Sophie had on a laminated card around her neck. A personal emergency contact. IT rang. A woman answered. "This is Mr. Mitchell's office. He's in a meeting." Marla raised an eyebrow. You tell Mr. Mitchell his daughter is sitting alone at gate C22. And if he doesn't come down here in the next half hour, I'm calling child services." There was a pause. Then a click point. 15 minutes later, chaos arrived in the form of a very stressed, very important man in an expensive suit. Douglas Mitchell pushed through the crowd, his assistant trailing behind him, phone glued to his ear. His face froze when he saw Sophie. "Baby," he gasped. I thought they were going to escort you." "You thought wrong," Marla said coolly. He looked at her, confused. "And who are you?" "I'm the janitor who noticed your daughter was alone," which is more than anyone else here can say. There was silence. Douglas knelt by Sophie, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm so sorry, Pumpkin. I didn't mean for this to happen." "I know," she whispered. "But you didn't check either." That line hit harder than any investor pitch gone wrong. Douglas looked up at Marlo again, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he said. "I mean that. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." "Don't thank me," Marla said. "Be there for your child. That's your job, not mine." The flight was rescheduled. Douglas canceled his meetings. For once, he chose his daughter. He sat with her at the gate while Marla started to walk away. But Sophie turned in her chair. "Wait," she called. Marla turned back. "Would you sit with us? Just for a while?" Marla hesitated. She looked down at her uniform, at her mop, at her scuffed shoes. "I ain't fancy like y'all," she said. "You're kind," Sophie replied. "That's better." So Marla sat, and they talked. About music, about dogs, about Marla's granddaughter who passed years ago, also in a wheelchair, also a light too soon extinguished. Douglas listened, really listened. For the first time in a long time, he saw his daughter not as a patient or a schedule conflict or something to be managed, but as a person, a child. His child. When the new flight was ready, Douglas stood and offered Marla his card. "Come work for us," he said. "I mean it. As a caregiver. I'll pay you triple whatever you're making now." Marla looked at the card, then at Sophie. "I'll think about it." She didn't need time to decide. 2 weeks later, Marla walked through the gates of the Mitchell estate, not as a janitor, but as Sophie's full-time companion and caregiver. She brought laughter into a house that had been too quiet for too long. She brought stories and warmth, and most of all, she brought presents, not the kind you can buy, but the kind that sees people, really sees them. Sophie thrived. She started painting again. She smiled more. She didn't ask her father why. He was gone all the time, because he wasn't gone anymore. He sat with her in the evenings. He took calls later. He held her hand during physical therapy. Even when she screamed in frustration, he changed, because of one woman who refused to walk by. They say the world changes when people speak up, but sometimes the world changes when someone simply stops to look, stops to care, stops to say, "You matter." Sophie Mitchell was the daughter of a billionaire. She had access to the best the world could offer, but none of that compared to what Marla gave her in a single moment: dignity, attention, and compassion. And in the end, that was worth more than all the millions in her father's bank account.